Welcome back to episode 3 of Conquering Kalimdor. Today I'm going to be taking my first steps into the Barrens. From the last video, I now have a little bit of armor and at least an iron tier weapon. I cross over the bridge from Orgrimmar and enter into the Barrens. One thing about the Barrens in the normal WoW is that usually there are a lot of lions around. Lions in Conan are actually elites. They're very hard to kill. I spotted one there, and then I noticed there was a baby lion. I decided to risk it and try to tame the lion. By taming animals, you have to go and collect their babies, and bring them back and raise them into pens. But as I pick it up, I noticed that it was way too heavy for me to carry, and the lion started to attack me, doing a lot of damage. It also didn't help that I was getting a lot of lag. By the time I dropped the baby and the lag spike hit me hard, it was too late and the lion killed me. After I respawned, I ran back, and then I saw another type of zeppelin. This one was horde themed, unlike the other one which was purple. It seemed to be taking the same flight path as the other one though, so I didn't really care too much. Normally this tent right here is empty in the actual World of Warcraft. It's just a Tauren hut, but there was no one inside of it. But here, there are several trolls, just kind of working on whatever they're working on. There was a chest inside, but nothing of value, so I continued on. As I approached the crossroads, I noticed thorns. The thorns are from normal World of Warcraft, but these models specifically are from the Midnight Grove. That is a dungeon in the vanilla Conan map. I wanted to see if there were any quillboar. There were no quillboar like there would have been in the normal World of Warcraft map, but there were these little trog-like creatures. I'm not exactly sure what they are called, however, I do know that they are from the DLC map Isle of Sipta. I have fought them before, but because I did not really finish Isle of Sipta nor had too many hours on there, I'm still not too familiar with them. I walk over to the other thorn bush, and I see some humanoid models. I was going to attempt to fight them, but then I saw a world boss. That world boss is specifically from the Sipta map, but I do remember it was a very hard creature to fight, and I decided it was not worth trying. I make my way to the crossroads, and then I see the Zeppelin land. Turns out this is one of its stops. So the Zeppelins go from Razor Hill to Crossroads to Mulgore, it seems, and I suspected Mulgore because right as it left, it started heading west. So I assume it's going to land in Thunderbluff, which makes it a fast travel from Razor Hill to Barrens to Mulgore. I entered into the inn, but I didn't really see anything of value. There were one or two merchants, but they didn't sell anything that was worth my time. Whoever made this map did put a lot of effort into the various decorations that are around the buildings. No building is completely empty, as there is at least several different types of decorations. The clutter helps it make it look more realistic too. Once I leave the crossroads, I head west. I headed to one of the oases, specifically the one right outside of the Wailing Caverns. There was not anything around in the oasis itself, at least in the grassy areas. As I approached the water, there were some turtles. Just the standard green Kappas. Green Kappas are actually very docile, and will not attack you unless you provoke them. Which I decided to kill one anyway. They are a low-level mob, so they are easy to kill. Once I kill it, I had to go down and try to skin its meat and such, because it fell under the water. Once I collected its meat, I turned to head toward the Wailing Cavern. I wanted to see if I could enter inside of it, to see if it was a dungeon. Alas, it was blocked off like most caves in this map. There was a single hyena outside, which was kind of strange. I didn't really know what to think of the hyena, so I decided to kill it. Since we found that one dungeon earlier in the first episode, I bet that this will eventually become its own dungeon once he implements it. I did want to see if the cave above in the Eyes of the Skull was accessible. Since climbing is a mechanic in Conan Exiles, I climbed up instead of going all the way around, which was a very nice way to climb up. Just as the cave in Wailing Caverns in the normal game, there was a bonfire, however there were no NPCs. There were a couple of chests around, but they didn't really have anything of value. I was starting to get hungry, so I put down a campfire and grilled up the turtle meat that I had just collected so I could eat. Once I had my fill and some food to go, I decided to continue on. I walked over to the Centaur Camps to see if there were any Centaur. There were no Centaur, but seeing that the banners were there, I concluded that it was the Dogs of the Desert tribe. In the Conan game, there are various tribes of humans that you could fight. Dogs of the Desert is one of them. They are an iron tier enemy, so while they are not the hardest enemy, they are fairly difficult if you are a new player. However, because they are an iron tiered enemy, and I have an iron tier weapon, I figured I could take them on. I tried to attack them. If it was only one or two, I could have possibly won. However, another one joined in as I pulled the first two. A tier 3 warrior with knives. If you are unfamiliar, enemies in this game have various tiers. Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, which tell you basically its level difficulty. Tier 3 being the highest, with the exception of named NPCs, which are basically Tier 4. The Tier 3 with the knives was doing a lot of damage to me, and with knives, it adds bleeding damage. So because I was dying, I decided to run. As I ran further west, there was something of interest that I did want to find out. If you've played World of Warcraft, you know exactly where I'm heading. I did see Taraho in the distance, but I figured I could explore that later, and I continued on to my destination. However, while trying to head to the single tent, I turned around and noticed that I was being followed. Several snakes and scorpions had aggroed onto me and were following me. I turned around to try to fight them off. I tried drinking a potion, but it did not work. However, I ended up succumbing to the poison. The poison got to me, and I eventually died before I could get to the tent. I was so close, yet so far. Unfortunately, my game crashed while trying to respawn, so this is where I ended this episode. This concludes this episode of Conquering Kalimdor. If you enjoyed watching this, please subscribe, as I will be posting more videos on my adventures with this mod weekly. Like the video and feel free to comment below. Thank you for watching.